Hello everybody and welcome back to the Overlap Breakdown channel. Now today we're here with a very special video about Bradley Barcola potentially moving to Liverpool for over £100 million, and not very close either. And yeah, today we're here to talk about how good actually is Bradley Barcola, how much would you pay for him if you were, a Liverpool sporting director, how well does he suit up to Andoni Iraola's football, and where his positives and weaknesses lie. So before we do that, I really want to say thank you so much to everyone who is watching the videos, who is subscribing to the channel. We have just had our biggest ever month in the month of July, coming off the back of the World Cup, and we cannot thank you enough at home for making that happen. But still, 80% of our viewers are not subscribed. So if this is the first time ever that you're watching an Overlap Breakdown video, please do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. It helps us out so much as we go into push into the 26-27 season. But today, we are here to talk about Bradley Barcola and what kind of player is he and how highly do I rate him? And spoiler, I think this could be a very good move for Iraola, for Bradley Barcola, for Liverpool. I think there are a lot of positives when I look at Bradley Barcola's game that translate really well to not only the Premier League and the use of deep runs, the use of depth, the use of counter-attacking quality, the use of ball carrying, the use of off-ball movement in the Premier League, how integral that is, but also Iraola's track record in terms of working with players of that ilk. And what we're going to go on today to speak about very plainly is a player who is an unbelievable chance sniffer and someone who's not the most technically pleasing on the eye when it comes to his final product, someone who's not a chance creator in abundance, but someone who has the relentlessness to score a boatload of goals. I think this could be someone who Liverpool look back on, and he does really remind me of a Liverpool winger more importantly. So yeah, today we are going to cover everything about Bradley Barcola, his game, what his positives and negatives are, and I hope you can really get behind and appreciate this video, because whilst the transfer window has just been cruising along and not much has been happening, I've spent so long talking about Bradley Barcola. So yeah, let's get on with the video. I want to go straight on into talk about what I actually think Bradley Barcola is as a player, where his positives, where his negatives do lie. And I'm going to do that by literally telling you some of the notes I had written down when I was watching him. So straight away, I think Bradley Barcola has been quite misinterpreted as a player. When I was watching him, I was expecting someone who's a little bit more of a flashy dribbler, someone who's maybe a lot of 1v1 package. His 1v1 game was really good when he gets squared up by a fullback. How does he respond to that? Does he go outside, inside? How good's his footwork? And to be honest, 1v1 on a direct standing still dribble, I was actually quite disappointed with him. I don't think he's the 1v1 dribbler, elite dribbler that maybe people think he is. I don't believe that he's someone who's going to be like a bit more of a Rio Ngamoa, someone like a Yandi Amande, who are going to take someone on 7 or 8 times throughout a game with an extremely high efficiency. What I do think he has is elite speed. And like when I say elite speed, I mean in European football, there's not that many players faster than Bradley Barcola, full stop. And he's got a really good trademark kick and run, a very good trademark sort of bounce rush down the line. What I mean by that is when his orientation is obviously facing forward with the ball and he can square up a fullback like that, he likes to go down the outside a lot for cutbacks. And this is something that I think is not necessarily classed as a take on, not something that's classed as maybe a dribble, but he can get the ball past the fullback in them moments, especially in them like semi-transitional moments when there's a little bit more space to be hit behind the fullback, when the opposition players are like pressed up a little bit more. When he comes into that more counter-attacking end-to-end style of play with football, he actually suits that style a lot better. The bits where I thought he was actually struggling were the bits where you can imagine a Luis Enrique, Pep Guardiola winger, where they are tied to the fullback really high up, not a lot of space to work with. And he still has a pretty decent, game there. But for me, when I was thinking about Bradley Barcola to Liverpool, when I was watching him, I was pretty excited by the idea that his dribbles more favour that end-to-end game, bit more space in behind the opposition's back line. I really do enjoy that. Another thing to talk about with Bradley Barcola is obviously this season he's actually played well less minutes than the season before. So I've got 2 graphics up on your screen right now to reflect that. So we can see this graphic right here is Paris Saint-Germain minutes played by Bradley Barcola in the Champions League and the French League 1. We can see that there's not really many 90 minutes completed. There's not really many games over 75 minutes played. But then if we take that back to 24-25, we can see just how many more, like the volume of minutes is there. And this isn't because of injury, this isn't because of maybe unavailability, suspensions. This is simply just that he's not playing in that team as much. You know, they've got Kvara, Dembele, Doué, who are freakishly good players. But Bradley Barcola is a very good player and is someone who, that if you put his work into per 90 minutes, and if you put his work into, you know, what does it look like against other elite wingers, it's really strong. In 64 games in that campaign, he contributed to 42 direct goals and assists, with 21 goals and 21 assists. So his per 90 numbers within league football very much stay at the same baseline. So I think that's a really important thing to know when we're talking about Bradley Barcola, because if you said that Liverpool were paying this amount of money for a winger who had 42 goal contributions in 64 games for left wing, then you would be going, yes, that's a very, very good return. So I think it's really important that we mention that in comparison to his 20 goals and assists from 49 appearances in the season just gone. And this is not a player who has got somewhat dramatically worse. He was a young player developing, and that was most importantly his debut season for PSG. So we can actually see that when we compare the 24-25 season, a season which he played 2,200 minutes in comparison to this season where he only played 1,700 minutes, the stats per 90 are virtually exactly the same. So his goals is exactly 0.57 per 90. His expected goals is 0.53 to 0.56. His expected goals minus penalties is obviously the same. His shots is virtually the same per 90. Shots on target is the same. Conversion rate. All the way down this list, there are virtually the exact same stats. There's not really much of a shift in a player here. If anything, his dribble success rate has gone up by 13% this year in comparison to last year. This is very much still the same player, but not a player that, in my opinion, is something a lot of people have been talking about him being this a little bit more of a 1v1 dribbler, someone who can play really high and attack the box. Now, I will say this about Bradley Barcola. I did really like him when I was watching him in terms of when he is pinned back like this, when he is going forward like this. And the reason why I do like him is because of that one step, that first step that he's got. And he has a really good trademark scoop on the ball. And what I mean by that is obviously he's a naturally right-footed player. And when he likes to come inside in the dribble, he likes to almost roll the ball onto his right-hand side and then scoop it across the face of the defender to knock it past them. And then we can get into the penalty area. So I've got an example against Aston Villa here. We're looking at Premier League opposition in the Champions League. He's 1v1 outside the block like this. He looks to drag the ball onto his right foot, 77 minutes in, then uses that first step to knock it past the fullback, get all the way to the line and delivers a lovely ball into the box for Ousmane Dembele. So this is what I'm talking about. His natural instincts are definitely more suited to that scoop element, them abilities to shift his feet in really small spaces and almost knock it past. He's not somewhat of a low centre of gravity dribbler. He's not someone like a Bernardo Silva, even maybe someone like a Doué, who's just got really, really top, mastery of the ball in small, tight situations, dribbling through small spaces. He's more of a kick and run type of dribbler, which for me, when I think of Antoine Semenyo with Iraola at Bournemouth, he does strike me as a similar sort of dribbler. This is a player who can get into the box with dribbles relentlessly throughout games. He can get you ridiculous amounts of touches in the most dangerous areas of the pitch. And when we was looking at Yan Diomande for Liverpool in a similar video, we always said that elite teams need these sorts of players. Vinicius Jr., of course, Bukayo Saka, Semenyo, Doku. These are players like that get into the box a lot throughout games. And that value cannot be understated. And that is exactly where I think Bradley Barcola is worth them premium amounts of money. Again, this example against Atalanta in the Champions League, 88 minutes in. This is more of a close-up, zoomed-in, picture. So you can see exactly what he's trying to do. So again, 1v1, likes to bend his knees, get really low to the floor, and then works it onto his right foot to then scoop it past his fullback on that left-hand side. He kick and runs down the line and delivers again another really good chance into the box, a really nice, really well-worked cutback. So if I show you what that looks like in a graphic for Barcola and for PSG, we can see that since 24-25, these are all of Bradley Barcola's chance-creating carries. He has scored 11 goals from 76 shots worked off his carries, 32 chances created off his own carries too. So this is definitely someone who's directly attacking the box from a diagonal angle. I mean, the way I've got it set up on the board for him to go at his fullback 1v1 like this is where I think he works best, because when he comes in like this, he does have that hooked shot, and what I mean by that is he can come inside and bend on his right foot. He scored quite a few goals doing that, but then he also has that unpredictability where he can also go down the line, knock it down the line, and that elite pace, when I'm talking about it, that tier 1 physicality and that athleticism to knock it past the fullback in the Premier League is incredibly useful. I'm looking at Alexander Isak and the type of wingers he liked at Newcastle with Jacob Murphy and Anthony Gordon. They are much more byline hitters. They work the ball into the box for him with them cut backed, maybe on the ground looking for a deep cut back like this. If the defenders are worked in, he goes down the line, a cut back like that. Alexander Isak scored a lot of them goals, even scored one for Liverpool against West Ham, where the winger is literally working the ball backwards. Now, for me, with Bradley Barcola, that is not just his only standout attribute. So for me, it was actually his off-ball stuff that really got me excited when I was looking at him. And this is where I like to compare him more to a Semenyo type than anything else. So Bradley Barcola, since 24-25 in the French League 1, has forced 44 high turnovers, turning 14 of them 44 into shot-ending high turnovers, with 6 of them being directly leading to goals. And if we think about Andoni Iraola and what he wants Liverpool to look like as a high-pressing, high-octane team, this is a player that doesn't just give you that on-ball contribution, but he's a player who can turn high turnovers into chance-creating moments and goal-scoring moments. And I think when people are looking at players, it's not often we talk about a luxury player of this level, of this, transfer fee, this rumoured transfer fee, to be one to watch off the ball. But when you think about Iraola, Liverpool, the current market, Bradley Barcola matches up well across Europe's top 5 leagues, and I can show you that in a graphic on your screen. He has converted 4 goal-ending high turnovers, which is the most in Europe's big 5 leagues in 25-26 season, despite not being a nailed-on starter for PSG. So this is definitely a player that Andoni Iraola will appreciate, not just on the ball for his technical work, his speed, his pace, his power, but for the amount he presses them deeper phases of possession and the amount of, deep phases he actually turns into goal-scoring chances. But for me, his off-ball running, his ability to sniff out a chance by spinning in behind the opposition's defence, is something that not only do I class as something that an Iraola winger definitely needs, but it's also something that in the modern game I think is really key, and one thing that he does better than a lot of players in Europe. And I mean, this is the one thing when I looked at Barcola as he could be the best at that in the sport. So when I was watching all of his goals on Y-Scout, I think there was about 58 goals that I watched on Y-Scout throughout his entire career at Lyon and with France, with the French national team at senior level, and then with PSG. I counted that 21 of, I think, his 58 goals in his professional career have come through one signature move. And that is literally the ability to run in behind and to cut through defenders who are a little bit higher up. So if I show you what that looks like on the board, you can imagine that if a team pressing in a 4-4-2, I'll set it up in a 4-3-3 for PSG so you can kind of get a little bit more of a gist of what I'm talking about. When the centre-halves push up like this and we've got the flat line of midfield coming to press on, this is something, again, when we're talking about Iraola, this is something that Iraola's teams like to do a lot. They are a very direct unit. So when I'm thinking about Bradley Barcola potentially going to Liverpool and exploding there, this is the one thing I look at and I go, he is elite at this. This is genuinely something that I think he's incredible at. So when the ball is in the build-up, Iraola's teams like to build up short. They like to use third man. So when the press is worked on, they like to cut through. But then once that cut-through pass is open, like let's say it's here, they want to go very fast. So if I'm going to show you right now what this looks like for off-ball runs when it comes to Bradley Barcola, again, right here we can see he's deeper in his own half. I think this is actually for Lyon in the early parts of his career. Off-ball spin. So again, 4-2-4, build up here for Lyon. He makes that run this time looking from the outside line, so the fullback's more narrower. He's looking to stay on the outside line, and then he's looking to work the ball outside as the pass comes through directly between the centre-halves like this. So if I'm looking at Szoboszlai, Florian Wirtz, them types of players who can pass in central midfield, and they still need another one in there, if they can work these constant progressive passes through the lines like this to break them, I'm thinking about maybe like an Adam Wharton, left-footed slides in between the defenders like this, then this is what you're going to see a lot from Bradley Barcola. I mean, look at how much he uses his pace here to get in behind. He works it in behind, gets behind the fullback, cuts it back. Lacazette scores the chance for Lyon. Doesn't end there. This is now more of a moment where I can say he's linking up and spinning off the line. So again, as we said before, this is an example where they're in deep build-up. PSG, we can see exactly how I've got it set up on the board, on the picture. 4-3-3 with the deeper wingers. Bradley Barcola looks to drop all the way in, so he's coming from this higher starting position, looks to drop all the way in, pressure on his back, receives it, but then he has the ability to link play. He's not just a runner. I actually think that we'll go and speak about his shooting techniques and some of his coordination 1v1 against the keeper that I don't quite like, but I think he's relatively clean on the ball when it comes to linking play, when he drops into these areas here like this. I think some of his link-up play is really nice, and we can see that on this picture here. He looks to work it back. He plays a nice little bounce pass off João Neves into the false nine right there, wins the header, and then he can crash into that space with, again, that tier 1 athleticism. He gets all the way into the box and actually messes up the cutback here. But when I'm talking about Bradley Barcola's spinning, this is something that when I was watching his goals, I mean, I'll just throw up a catalogue of images on your screen, and every single one of them will be goals that he has scored. These same runs, and I'm talking the variety of those runs. So if I should show you on the board again what I mean by this, it's like if he's squaring up his fullback like that, he can come short, work the press, but then he also has this cutback. So if you can imagine someone's on the ball here, or maybe it's left back, he has this thing where he can come short, entice the press, and then he spins. And his ability to not only score from this, but to actually assist from this and create chances is something that I think this is, when I look at Bradley Barcola, this is where I think he is top 1, and he could be in his position. So where do I think Bradley Barcola needs to work on? Well, for me, I really don't like him 1v1, consistently taking chances. Now, I know Liverpool fans will have said this before because they've always had this thing with Darwin Núñez where they go, if he gets into the right positions, then eventually the goals will start coming. You know, he's just getting into the right positions, all that kind of stuff. Bradley Barcola does get into the right positions. As we mentioned before, these amounts of spins that come in behind the line like that, his off-ball movement is so intelligent to get him into the spaces, just like Darwin Núñez is. But the technique when he's 1v1 is not that polished at all. He's quite raw. When I was watching a lot of his interviews, they were always talking, his friends were talking often about this hooked finish, and they said that when he went to training, he was scoring hooked finishes, which is that trademark sort of curve in, cutting from the left-hand side like that on your right foot to bend it to the far post. But for me, when I was watching him, it's his setups to the shots that I really don't like. So I've got this example against Newcastle here. We can see again, he's making that same run we were talking about, that same splitting run between centre-half, full-back. Gets in behind like this. He actually gets across Trippier, so he steps across him, but then he moves it onto his left foot. Bradley Barcola is traditionally obviously a right-footed player, but it seems like his setups for the shots are just really, really raw, and it's his coordination and his time and his footwork. When the keeper looks to close down, when the defender looks to close down, sometimes he can have big touches, sometimes he can have really loose touches, but then also the final action for me just really hasn't worked itself out yet. And this is not something I can say that he will definitely be able to deliver goals consistently at a relentless, scale, on a relentless scale, because I don't know if he actually could do that. He's obviously scoring a lot of chances for PSG, but that's because they're creating a lot of chances. So maybe he will explode, but maybe this is something where he might just stay stagnant, because you can see here, against PSG, he comes in, attacks the box, and you think traditionally as a right-footed player, he's going to open up his body, instep, and then bend it to the far side netting. He doesn't really do that. His feet get really caught up together. His feet are too close. He doesn't get separation between him and the ball, and he ends up trying to dig the shot out from his own feet, and he ends up actually hitting it with the side of his ankle, not the side of his instep, and that ends up hitting the side netting of the outside of the goal. So he's got a lot of these ropey aspects to his finishing, and these are bits where I would say, he needs to improve on. If he's going to be valued at this much, and bearing in mind, I don't think there's many players in the world that are valued as high as PSG are valuing Bradley Barcola, and people will say that Liverpool are buying potential. Don't get me wrong, there are current attributes about Bradley Barcola that can make him one of the best wingers in the world. But if you're talking about a 140 million or even a £100 million player, obviously it's in today's market and everyone seems to be going for that. But these are attributes that, in my opinion, they have to be ironed out. They have to be worked out. Luckily, Andoni Iraola has a really good track record of making younger, rawer products like Semenyo into something special. And he could do the same at Liverpool. And this is where I think he really needs to focus on Bradley Barcola. So again, this is an example from a game against Olympique Lyon. This is the same exact run we were mentioning before, that outside to inside run, but this time it's off the right-hand side. As we know, Bradley Barcola can play all across the front three. He has played false nine for PSG. He has played right-hand side, left-hand side. So when he makes that run in behind, you can see, Great first step of acceleration, gets across his fullback. That's one thing he's really good at doing, because when he gets the ball in behind of his fullback like this, say the fullback's like a bit more narrower, he comes in, but then his first touch isn't to keep it outside. He actually steps across, leaving his fullback behind him. So his fullback, if he does get tight, has to make a decision. Obviously, he might be able to get past him, get to the box, but obviously he could be brought down. There could be a red card, could be a penalty, and he does that really well to get himself in front and get himself across. But then when he comes into the area, again, he's come inside, but then he moves it onto his left foot again. And when you look at the moment that he actually looks to bring it inside on his left foot, the keeper is more towards that further post, the left-footed post where you would think an instep would go. But he steps across the keeper, and then Bradley Barcola actually looks to move it onto his left foot. Then his mind changes one more time, that when he moves it onto his left foot and goes 1v1 with the goalkeeper, he then tries to dink it over the goalkeeper when the goalkeeper hasn't even fully dropped down to the floor yet. This could be an easy side-footed finish on his right-hand side if he'd have kept it on his right foot. But he's second-guessing himself when he gets deep into the penalty area, and he gets a lot of 1v1s. He has a lot of glaring misses. And like I was saying before, this could be a Darwin Núñez, type of thing where he's constantly getting in behind, he's constantly getting the chances, and maybe he doesn't score him. Luckily for him, despite maybe his underperformance in front of goal, he does have 0.57 goals per 90 across the last 2 seasons for PSG, which you would say, for a 23-year-old, and yes, he could have more, he knows that himself, you would say for a 23-year-old at this current stage, that you would take that definitely for £100 million in the market, 110% as a goal every other game. So I think straight away, these are the types of finishes and these are the types of attributes where I think they are looking at it and they are going, this could be one of the best wingers in world football if he irons everything out. So on your screen right now, I've got another graphic from Opta on your screen, and this is talking about his goals output since the 24-25 season. Now, as you can see on this goals output chart, there's a lot of them cluster of shots coming inside that little left pocket on the box like this, because he's obviously coming inside on his right foot and taking a lot of shots here. What there also is really big red blobs of big XG chances within the goal mouth. Bradley Barcola, for me as a player, really likes hitting space, and someone was actually having a conversation with me on social media. I would compare him more to a Leroy Sané type player, someone who can make that run from the outside of the fullback to get in behind, someone who can make that slipped run in between here, someone who can go outside, go inside, run across defenders, sometimes go left, inside, right. That is the type of player I think he is. I do think his dribbling package for Iraola will look a lot better too. I think in them more transitional neck and neck moments where they're going from top end of the pitch to back end of the pitch, when there's more space, and Iraola will create that for him, I think he will look a lot better at carrying the football. I don't think he's a bad carrier of the ball. I think his 1v1 dribbles where he's actually facing up a fullback 1v1 are patchy, and there are a lot of loose coordinations with his legs, and he almost gets tangled up a little bit too much. So, yeah, this is a really interesting player, but yeah, like I was saying, the red blobs on that map for Bradley Barcola across the last 2 seasons is a really, really big thing. Like, that's a really good thing. He's attacking the back post a lot for PSG. He follows the ball in, he attacks the back post, he gets in the goal mouth, and he can score a scrappy goal. He can score a crap goal, basically. The amount of big blobs that he's actually got within that 6-yard box is not naturally what you would see for a winger. That's not naturally what you would see from maybe Ousmane Dembele, maybe Yan Diomande, maybe someone like a Mohamed Salah. Them blobs are a winger who wants to score, who wants to get in behind. And he's more of that mobile winger who wants the goals. A little bit like Sadio Mane, I would say. A little bit like that in terms of his interpretation of space within the box, his ability to find it. But at the moment, the tutelage in front of goal is really raw. The different techniques that he likes to use are really raw. And to be honest, I don't really know how much better that would have to be at Liverpool for him to sort it out. But obviously, he's still a very, very prolific and output efficient winger. And even on that XG graph we've shown you, over the last 2 seasons in League and football, he has actually overperformed his expected goals, which might sound a bit mental, but it's true. And yeah, just to put it into perspective of what I was actually saying about Bradley Barcola's dribbles before, across the last 2 seasons in football, in Ligue 1 football, Bradley Barcola has a 22% take-on ratio in the Ligue 1. So that is definitely a player I would not class as a dribbler. But one thing I do think he has elite level at is off-ball running, his ability to sniff a goal out, his ability to run in behind, his ability to receive in behind. I do think he gets into incredible areas, and a lot of the goals he scores come from his own movement. And he is a player who creates his own chances through that movement. He's not a still winger. He's not a winger who's going to hold possession. He likes to take a lot of risks, a lot of chances. And this is a player who, the 3 goals he scored in the World Cup, look at the goal he scored against England in the World Cup in the 3rd place playoff, is the same run. It's the outside to inside run, receives it in behind, goes narrow into the box, diagonal run to the box, and then can choose both feet which way he wants to go. So this is definitely a product that I think Iraola could work with. I think this could be a winger that explodes under Iraola, because there's not many teams in world football, I would say, could use a player like that and use them to like a ridiculously good level and make them explode. And I think maybe only Manchester United, Liverpool, and someone along them, I think them two are the only current sides that play a little bit more faster, direct football, with the wingers making really good runs in behind, getting in behind, cruising in behind. I think they're the 2 teams that, in my opinion, when I look at the Premier League, who could take the biggest advantage with Bradley Barcola. So for me, I do think this could be a really good player for Liverpool. I do think he suits Iraola well. I think Iraola's got such a good track record of improving attacking players, and he's a type of player, the type he is, the archetypes that he is. I think this could be a player that could explode under Iraola. So, yeah, that's all we have time for today. I think it's a really interesting sign. I always want to see the best players come to the Premier League. This is a player who's going to come here, hopefully, for a ridiculous amount of money. But yeah, it's a really interesting one. So, yeah, let us know what you think of Bradley Barcola potentially going to Liverpool for upwards of £140 million. And we'll see you next time on the Overlap Breakdown. So please make sure you like, comment and subscribe. Thank you.
This has been a Global and the Overlap production.